Alright, how's it going, guys? We promised you this engine disassembly video. This is a motor I had lying around. I'm going to disassemble this motor, and when we go back together, I'm going to use a different motor out of a mod bike I have that I'm going to do all these upgrades that I'm going to show you. But for now, this is going to be strictly a disassembly video, like a part one. So we're going to start here with the top end. You want to get to your timing marks on your cam and on your crank just to get it to top dead center to take it apart. I mean, technically you don't have to, but it's just the right way to do it. Makes things easier later on. I'm mostly going to need like an 8 and a 10 millimeter. I'm going to use a gun. If you guys don't like doing that, that's your decision. I feel comfortable with one, so going back together, obviously, you're not going to use an impact. Taking apart, it's okay. You got the cam cover off, and here's your cam gear and your timing chain. I like to just kind of toss the parts inside the cover, keep everything together. We're going to move on to the cover here. A lot of times guys replace these Phillips head bolts. There's kits on eBay. Some of the companies sell them. You can get nicer bolts, and they are not Phillips head. They're actually just your normal standard bolt head, which is much better for this situation because these strip out and they break and all kinds of nonsense. So there's nothing to be scared of in here. Nothing's gonna like pop out in your face. The stator's behind here. And I will show it to you guys. Some of these bolts are different lengths. So you have a longer length and a shorter length. Just make sure you pay attention to that when you take it apart. Oh man. I already got all the oil out of this motor. It's been sitting on the shelf for a while, so it's pretty dry, thankfully. Now on your motor, this is going to take some force to take apart because you're going to have a gasket and everything. This motor has been apart to a certain extent before. The cases have not been split on it, so that will be a first time on this motor. So now we are going to move to taking the tension off the timing chain. You want to see, so top dead center, when you're looking at your crank, you can see there's an F and a T. The T is the mark you want. The F stands for fire. That's where the spark plug actually fires. But your top dead center, you can see this mark, this triangle that is casted in the block there. You're gonna line that right up with your top dead center mark here. So now we are lined up. And when we look at the front, same thing. There's an F and there's a T. And the T, there's a mark in the head right there. You can see it. There's a little machine in there. See if you can get in there, Johnny. And you can see it lines up with that mark right there perfectly. So now we're at top dead center. The next thing we are going to do is take the pressure off the timing chain. Let me turn this a little bit more towards you. So we'll get out the old 10 millimeter to pull the tensioner off. In the going back together video, I will show you guys actually how this detensions and everything, but for now you just unbolt it. You can wrestle it out of here if you want to, but the boss for the starter that does not exist on this motor is in the way. So you know, it's a challenge, but you can get it out. Now we have to pull off the cam gear. That is on this motor, because this has a 143 in it already, but it's a stock head. Comes apart the same way as a stock motor, so no difference there. But it does have Allen keys here. This is actually the easiest with an impact because you're not moving your you can keep your timing straight there. So now, stuff out of the way here. Now you're just going to pull this cam gear right off. Literally just pulled it right off the shaft. There's your cam. There's the bolt holes. Another positive to putting it at top dead center before you take it apart is this cam's kind of locked in the side you want it to be. That way it's just when it goes back together, you got it where you want it to be. Because it's hard to fight the valve spring pressure if you want to twist this 180 degrees. You always want to be in the free space of the cam because the lobes are close together. So the intake and exhaust valves, you'll know if you are on the wrong side of this cam for actual top dead center, because there will be no play in it because you'll be sitting in between the cam lobes. It'll be locked and there won't be any play. This way you know because you are on the non-lobed side of the cam. So I can feel the lobe and then another lobe back that way. So you'll know if you got the free play that you're in the right spot. So next we will pull off the head here. For this, you have to take off the oil line. I already have the banjo bolt pulled out, but that is something you have to do. Oh, those are 12s. These are a 12 millimeter right here. And that is off.
Get your 2 10s out of there.
And then we got the 10s on the other side. Back here. Might be able to get this in there, maybe not. Probably not. These are the ones that everybody always forgets because they're tucked back here. I'm sure there's some people who have fought their head trying to get it off because these 2 bolts are in here. You just can't forget about them. There it is. Head slides off. There's your 2 valves. Obviously, your intake valve, exhaust valve. Pretty simple. Got your actual valve adjustment there. I'll show you how to do that when we go when we do the engine assembly video. I'll set this over here. Put the bolts with it. On your motor, when you take the head off, there is going to be one with a copper washer. Just make sure you pay attention when you take off the nuts for the top of the head because there should be washers behind here. On this motor, I don't have them on there right now. So next we are going to pull the cylinder off, and generally it's pretty simple, but you usually have to do a little bit of kind of popping it loose. Whatever you want to use to get in there. I use, I got a tire iron that I can fit in here between the case and the actual fins of the head. Now you got to obviously use some discretion. You don't want to be really cranking on it too hard, but you can use it to kind of, that's it, get it loose. You will have a metal gasket on top, and then on bottom you need to pay attention to, this is a cam chain guide, and this slips into the head right here, and that's all it does. I know it seems just kind of weird, but that's it, because everything just kind of holds it together, the head being on there. So that is your cylinder and your gasket. We have that done. next step we are going to move on to is we are going to show how to remove the flywheel. Hopefully this has the bazinga to pull that off. Might have to go get the impact. Like a 17, I believe. 17 millimeter on the flywheel here. The next part you do need to have to take the flywheel off is a flywheel puller. The part number on this flywheel puller is TR-151610. It's a 28 millimeter by 1.0 flywheel puller. Pretty simple design. This part threads onto the flywheel. This part presses on the crank and pulls it off. Very simple. Do it until it stops. And this is going to run down. It's going to hit the crank. Alright. Get a hold back on this again. That's it. With an impact, it's a lot easier. And the flywheel is off. You can take your flywheel nut and just put it back on there for now. So the next step to taking the motor apart is we are going to we'll show you how to remove the piston, just because so you'll need a pair of needle nose pliers, and you want to pull, there's a clip right here, pull that clip out. And then usually from the other side, you're going to want to push that out. It's best to use like a, you can't gouge the, if you're going to reuse the piston, there's actually a surface in there that the wrist pin rides in, and you do not want to gouge it. So if you are going to push it out with something, you just got to make sure you be careful that you're not going to damage the surface. Sometimes they are really hard to get out. This one is definitely being a bugger here. Let's see if I can get you out of there. Alright, so that one came out. Thankfully, we're not using this piston again, so I didn't have to worry about that surface in there. But you can see that's a machine surface with this machine wrist pin, so you got to be careful when you're pushing that out. If it comes out hard, you just got to be as careful as you can and hope that you don't damage it. So we're going to set that aside. Then you just got your rod here, still attached to your crank. This is the other cam chain guide. A lot of times, really, you can replace that. You can buy that as an OEM part. It's not like it's super expensive or anything. I usually replace them if you're doing a build. Might as well.
They do tend to get loose around that collar.
So this bushing in here, you can see this goes in here, and that's kind of what this rotates on as a bearing. This bolts into the block here, and eventually this gets worn, and you can see it gets play in it, which this one does have some play for sure. So just replace those because it's worth it. I like to put bolts back where they came from a lot of the time. That's usually what I do. Now we will move on to taking apart the clutch side of the motor. So we're going to show you full disassembly here. This is another area where you can replace the Phillips head bolts with bolt kits off of eBay or wherever you like to buy your stuff from. Some bolts under here. Nice and grungy. All right, so now that those are all out, these bolts are all the same length, so no need to worry on this particular cover about bolt length. Now you got to crack this case loose. Generally, I usually just kind of give it a couple of taps. 2x4 and a hammer, whatever you want to do. Where you feel comfortable with that loosened her up. There we go. All right. Oh yeah. Oh, that was good. So have your pig mat out when you're doing this. This motor's not had oil in it in a long time, so still got something in there, but you're gonna make a mess no matter what you do. So explain all this now. In here, this rides in here. There's a line you can line up right here. And then this has a bearing right here. And all this comes apart. You know, I want to just pay attention to everything here. These are kind of a pain to put back together sometimes when you're trying to put the cover back on. There is a bearing here. It does come out because you have to remove it to pull the clutch off. So now we have right here, this is basically your clutch setup, your stock
semi-auto.
Yeah, your semi-auto clutch assembly. The magic happens inside of here. There's some clutch pawls that spring out as you accelerate, and that's how that works. It's a pretty basic thing. You can rebuild them, but if you get rid of this, it takes a ton of weight off the crank here. So you know, it's ideal to get rid of this. And in the engine assembly video that I do, I will show you how to put a primary gear on here and lighten all this up. So let's take this off now. What we got there?
Those are
19 millimeter. Deep. All right, so now that you got your bolt off here, you're going to want to come in here. You can use a magnet to get this out. And there is a base that it sits in here. You can just work out. That sits in here. That just goes back in there when you're done, but it does free up the space to take the nut off the clutch there. So this is your actual clutch pack. Put a little extension on it. $19mm still. So keep these nuts separated. They really are the same, but just make sure you keep them separated as you take this apart. So all this is going to come off as one piece. Don't be scared. Just kind of pull it off together. Come on. There we go. All right, now on the back of here, I want to show this just in case you don't catch it. There's a piece here that sits inside of here and runs between this and the trans shaft here. And there is a spacer behind it. You want to keep this stuff all in the orientation that it is. I usually just keep it together, and when I set it on the table, I set it in sequence so that when I put it back together, I know that that was the way that it went. Nothing crazy behind here. They're just paws that expand inside the clutch housing, and that's it. This looks pretty. This clutch looks pretty smoked. This got hot definitely a couple of times.
Point out the one-way bearing in there.
Yeah. So right here is the one-way bearing. If you go to kick your bike and your bike don't kick, there's a one-way bearing in here that likes to tend to go bad sometimes, and you got to replace that if you're having an issue. See, it doesn't turn the one way, it only turns this way. When it breaks, it turns both ways, and then when you go to kickstart your bike, it no kicky.
Nice $80 fix.
Yeah, it's always fun. So you can keep all. I put these parts in the clutch cover itself. When I store the stuff, I do not put them in there, you know, with the clutch parts. I try to keep the stuff that goes together. There is a little filter here. And as you can see, this motor has never been taken apart to past this point, really. This is all stock over here, so you can see there's some shavings in there. So you gotta clean this out if you're gonna rebuild your motor. Obviously, that would make sense. This is your oil pump here. This is the your shift assembly right here. What's the name I'm looking for, Johnny? Yeah, your shift shaft. Your shift shaft assembly right here. This just pushes through to the other side. When you take the bolt off here, this all slides right out, and we'll pull this off to show you how that's done so that you can see. We'll do that next. This is a 5mm Allen. locked from the factory, so first time it comes out is a little hard. That's what you got there. This is your shift star. This is what makes the magic happen for shifting the trans. So now with the shifter off the other side, you can slip this out. Not super easy always, but you got to just work it out. Might have to give it a little tappy.
Maybe a case of a bent shift shaft.
Yeah, this one might have a bent shift shaft because it is not, I don't think I've ever had one come out this hard. So now this is another issue that you can see that KLXs have from time to time. I'm going to basically have to push this shift shaft out of here. If it's too extreme, you will have to cut the shift shaft on the other side to get it out. Hondas bend a lot easier than KLXs do. But normally this slides out by hand. So I'm kind of glad it did this, because now you guys get to see a possible issue that you might run into. So I'm just tapping on the actual spot where you slide the shifter on the other side to get this out. I'm gonna keep working it. Are you gonna come out now? The little shift star fell off, no big deal. Ooh, man. That is really in there, huh? All right. We're just gonna keep running it out. And it got past the bend. So this is how easy it should move. When you go to move it, I mean, it'll have some resistance from the seal, but it should move pretty easy, to be honest with you. This is a very simple piece.
You can see the bend.
Oh yeah, she's very bent. See that, guys? Hopefully you can see it in the camera, but it is bent.
Right there.
That one's bad. Holy shnikes.
Probably should have cut that off.
Yeah, well, if it does feel like you're forcing it out that hard, and you care about the bottom end you're working on, you probably should cut the one side off. Sometimes the bend might be somewhere where you can't cut it off, and you might just have to live with it. This shift set, I'll show you guys this now, but on the shift star, there's a detent right here that's on the actual shift drum that's inside the trans that you guys will see once we take this apart. That just fits right on there. There's a little arm right here that basically is like a detent for the shift star. That's what holds your trans in gear. Trans in this is not in the greatest shape, I don't think. But I don't have the bolt in it, so I can't move it by hand right now. But you get the idea that this just sits in each detent, and that's where your gears come from. Pretty simple design. Turns the shift forks in the trans. So now you don't necessarily have to remove the oil pump, but generally you should replace it if you're building another motor. It's just a peace of mind kind of thing. I'm gonna put this back in here for now. These bearings don't look like they've seen some better days. Got it. Go ahead and pull this out here. So that's it. There's a guide pin. dowel, that's what they call them. And then there's an O-ring there and an O-ring there. And that is all this is. This is a pump. So generally people replace them because there's usually metal floating around in these motors, and that's kind of just the way that it is. At this point, there's nothing that will fall off of here or anything like that. We got to take the kickstart out. We're going to pull this stuff back out, pull this shift star off. It's that easy. Set that aside. This stuff you can leave on the case. It's not going to affect anything right now. So let's take this kickstart out of here. I like to thread these back on so you don't lose those. Come on, girl, get out there. All right, for the kickstart, you got to get this spring out right here. It's literally just in a little hole. All right, see that? There's a washer down here. Just make sure you don't miss that. It's a thrust washer. If you don't put that in there, it won't be right. It's got to be in there. And a lot of people, it's very easy to miss this because it does like to stick to this. So you want to make sure that when you put this back in, this goes in with it. Just keep it with it when you put it off to the side. Very easy mechanism to get back in.
You can see the cracks in there.
Yeah, in the down in the boss here that holds the actual Kickstarter, they do, when you get into the higher horsepower motors, when you're doing bore kits, this can crack. The case is basically ruined at that point. You'll have to get a new case, most likely. But that is an issue that can happen. Now on this side, we're pretty much done. So we're gonna move back over to the other side so we can start taking everything apart here. Normally, obviously, there's a screw here and a screw here. I just had this off. This is like your neutral safety switch, more or less, on these bikes. So next, we will pull the actual timing chain off. Again, use a number 3 bit head so you don't do what I did to that screw on the oil pump. This works better. That is the retaining plate for the timing chain. That will allow you to slide the timing chain off the back of the crank, pull the timing chain out. There she is. Put all this stuff back together, but I'm actually going to put this right back on here because it's not going to affect anything. So it's one less piece to keep track of. Remember, you still got your bolt in here from your chain guide. And now we are going to start taking the bolts out for separating the cases. Just here, 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 one there, one there. There's a cheeky little guy right in there. Make sure you get them all. Alright. Now, these bolts, although I cannot remember off the top of my head if they're all, I believe they're different. Yes, so there is some that are different, so you want to pay attention to that as you take it apart. Even if you do lose your place with these, it is pretty obvious when you put them in the hole. Obviously, if it's the longer one, you put a shorter one in there, it's not going to reach the threads. You can also see by using your eyes through the case how long it's going to technically probably be, and figure it out, because there's only 2 links. But just if you pay attention, you can number them, whatever you want to do. I don't need to do that because I know where the long and shorts go, but if you want to, you can. Okay, we're going to put all these bolts from the clutch cover over here. So we're all there. Now we are at the point where you are going to have to press the cases apart. I normally use a press to do this. I'm going to try to not use a press to do it, so you guys can see a way at home to do it without having any kind of special tools. We are going to try the old mallet option to see if I can achieve it, and maybe some 2x4s or something to hold this thing up from different sides of the cases. You can buy a crank puller for cases. Case splitter tool basically is what they call it. I will try to separate it without the press, and we'll see what happens here. We're gonna give tapping the crank with a dead blow a try. See if it works. Maybe it will, maybe it won't. But it's essentially the same idea as, you know, an actual tool for case splitting. It's pushing on the crank while being screwed into this side of the case to pull it out. So see if we have any luck. And holy shnikes, we are having some luck. Guess I could give the trans a little tap here. Oh yeah. So this one really didn't take much pressure. This case has never been split before, so that I'm aware of. I'm pretty sure this is a stock bottom end. Now your trans and everything sit in this side of the case, the clutch side. So you're going to kind of want to, like, when you start getting to this point where it's going to come apart, you want to pay attention, because you need to make sure that everything stays in place so you know what's going on when you get it apart. Now, I'm almost there. Let's see if I can try to just want to keep it all in place for you guys. If it falls apart on me, no big deal, because I kind of know where it goes, but there we go. Man, she's really cooperating with me, huh?
I should say though, ideally you do want to use a case splitter. This is more of a last ditch thing.
Well, I want to show you guys how to do it without any kind of tool, special tool. If you're going to be replacing the bearings, definitely don't worry about this. Trying to get the shift fork rods out without them falling out, but I don't think that's going to happen. So I want you guys to see how this is when it's all together. All right, so there's your case half right here. I did that without a press. I tapped on it, and I really didn't tap on it that hard. Definitely wouldn't think that I caused any damage or anything like that. Like I said, when you come in here, you want to buy the bearing kit. TB Parts sells it. You want to replace all these bearings, everything in here. You need a blind hole bearing puller for this to get this bearing out. I've tried the bread trick and the grease trick and all that. It ain't gonna work, so don't even waste your time. You're gonna want to replace this bearing, anything you really can other than the crank bearings, because those are fixed on the crank. If you buy a stroker crank, it comes with new bearings, so that's nice, definitely nice in the upgrade. As you can see, this actually has a an issue on this gear here.
Is that the infamous second gear?
Yeah. So that's definitely a problem that'll need to be remedied on this motor here. This is the area that they machine if you want to put a bigger piston in it than a 155, which is a 143. So we'll go up to a 165 piston. You're gonna have to bore the cases, there's a few people that do it on the Planet Minis forum. If you get on there, Chad Norman will grind some cases for you, and he'll do a really good job. I had mine done by Jesse Bain at one point. I'm not sure if he's still servicing cases or doing anything with pit bikes, but hey, there's a bug in there. You see that? Look at that. Yummy. He's been laying in oil for a while, that buddy. So you're going to want to clean these cases up, obviously. You can just use, your favorite cleaner, whatever you like to use to get oil and soot off. I use a degreaser. For the sake of this video, I'm going to show you how to push a couple of these bearings out, just to show you how to do it. I might not necessarily do all of them, but you'll get the picture of how it works and how easy it is just to replace your stuff. But for now, we're going to set this off to the side. So at this point, to put a stroker crank in, you'd have to get this side. You have to push this side of the crank out of the cases. That's another pressing situation. I'm not so sure that you'd be able to tap that one out with a dead blow hammer, but for the sake of this video, we're gonna try. Your trans situation here, I will take out, because most likely while I'm beating on this with the hammer, it's definitely going to fall out. So the way you can do this, the easiest way is you can pull these rods out, keep these in the orientation they are. So if that's the way they're laying in the case, for now I will keep it in that orientation on the mat. Out, and these slide off to the side. Okay, they might fall out. They come out easy. If they do come out, they're not impossible to put back in. Do not freak out. It just literally rides in the surface here. That's it. Nothing to be scared of. Pretty simple. You just want to pay attention to all these gears. See how that fell out? No big deal. Put it right back in. Okay, so that's gonna stay there. Might stay there. Might just take those out, but this will come right out.
It's your shift drum for anyone looking to go for a 4-speed. You replace that.
Shift drum. This is a stock 3-speed shift drum. If you want to upgrade, any of them work. You can buy any one of the companies, and they all do pretty decent. If you do take these out, they are obviously different, so you want to pay attention to that. So I'll put those inward together so they stay there. This comes out as a whole. You can kind of just give her the old, give her the tickle. Give her the tickle to get her on out of there. All right. Oh yeah, okay. Come on, big girl. So this last part does not want to come out here. So we're gonna set this This is all one piece. You can keep it as one piece. It's no problem. Very easy to do. Just keep it as one piece and set it off to the side there. Now to work on this guy. They don't want to come out. That's what, you know why? Because I put the old nut on this back side. Make sure that you take that off. That's going to come right out. I'm going to put the nut back on there. So this is pretty easy. You can see where they fit together. You can see where it all works. Okay, it's basic. These shift the dogs in here, and that changes your gears. I mean, it's very basic transmission in this. You can't really, you know, mess it up as long as you just pay attention when you take it apart, and it'll go back together how you want it to. So I keep all this together, and I set it aside, you know, as a whole. So put it right here. Pretty simple. Keep the gears on there, keep everything on there.
The people looking to do a heavy duty output shaft, this piece here, this gear, this shaft, all these gears will come off and you'll replace them with the new shaft. It's pretty easy.
We'll show you when we go to put the motor back together how to do that in the upgrade video on building a mod motor. So as you can see, I mean, it's really not as complicated as most people think. Really, that's all that's in here. There's more to take apart on the outside to get to here than there is to take apart in here. For snicks and giggles, I'm gonna try and push this crank out and see what happens. This motor needs a full rebuild anyway, so that's why I'm not like super concerned about being extremely careful here, because this is going to get a stroker crank no matter what. But I'll try. I feel like she moved a little bit, but maybe not. I think she did. I think she's moving a little bit, and I'm kind of holding it with my own hand here, so not super ideal. I want to show you guys that anybody can do this. This is just you want to make sure you keep track of the dowel pins that sit around here for the clutch housing itself. The other one's probably sitting in the clutch housing, but there's dowel pin spots that keep all these cases aligned, and these just fit in there. Just make sure you keep track of those, especially when you're taking the motor apart up here with the head and everything. There's 2 dowel pins that sit in here. You just want to make sure that you just keep track of all those dowel pins. Almost everything cover you take off, cylinder head, cylinder itself, they all have alignment pins. You want to make sure that you keep track. We're getting there. I think we're getting there, Billy. She actually cocked a little bit. And Bob's your uncle. I just pressed that out with a dead blow hammer, and this is a stock bottom end. This has never been out of here. You can see the bluing on there. This thing was ran hard and hung up wet, and crank's actually still tight, believe it or not. But that's it, guys. I mean, for taking apart the motor, that's all you got in here. Nothing to be scared of. At this point, I'll drive out a bearing or two just to show you guys. It's pretty simple. These ones have actual screws that you have to take out before you press it out. Just make sure you get those out of there and don't fudge that up. When you get the new bearing kit, it will be obvious as to what bearing goes where. You just match them up and take care of business. Now to drive these out, you don't necessarily, when you drive a bearing in, you never want to drive off of the inner surface, because that actually stresses the ball bearings in here. You're jamming on the bearing itself. When you drive it in, you want to make sure that you're on this outside surface. You see how this socket fits that perfectly like that? When we go to do an engine assembly video, I'll make sure I show it, but as you can see, you want to push on that outside ring. I just want to make sure that nobody uses driving it out the way I'm going to drive it out to be driving them in. Let's see if we can get this out of here. Okay, so there's one. It's that easy, guys. There's one out of there. Look, that's got some, whatever that is. It's not horrible. It isn't horrible. Probably still run, no problem. But this is so easy. It's just worth your time to do it and do it right, and just make sure that you're replacing these, because it's super simple and it's worth it. Look at that. Super easy, guys. That one's got some chatter to it. That one's not as good. We got this one here. Boom. That one's out. Nice and easy. That's all the bearings in this case, because this is what you drove out for the crank. These are the other 3 bearings. Take these guys, put them right back in here. Now you can clean your case. You can stick her right in the sink. If you got a slop sink, get your stuff all cleaned up. Put this back. Now there is a bearing on the other case here. It takes a little bit more. You are going to have a blind hole bearing puller. There's no way around it. I've tried to find a way around it so that you guys would have a way, and just the way that this is designed, there's a hole in the back of this. See that hole there? It just, no matter what you do, whatever you're putting in there, grease, it never seals, so you can't push the bearing out with it. There's an old bread trick that you can use. You keep shoving bread in there and a punch and hammering it down, and usually it'll push the bearing out. This one, that's not going to happen. So we have this tool. This particular tool is from Performance Tech. It's a slide hammer pilot bearing puller set, W89742. When you open it up, you're going to have these little, they got fingers and they've got a little tip on them, and they expand into the bearing. You really got to crank them down. They expand into the bearing, and then you use a slide hammer to yank them off. So we'll go ahead and go in here. We're going to set that down in there. You're going to tighten this until she gets nice and tight. Oh my God. There we go. So you really want to, it takes some pressure. First time I used this, I kept not putting, I didn't crank this down tight enough to actually get it out, and it kept slipping out. So I found that you really do got to kind of crank it down pretty good. Now the other part of this tool, this screws on here, and I just get rid of the old slipped out. So we're gonna have to try again.
My tool's pretty worn out here.
It is a little worn on the tip. That's all right, we'll get it out. This has pulled out many of mine and Johnny's pilot bearings here. It's just, she's seen better days. She's seen some better days, so we're really gonna crank it down on this one, and hopefully we can get it out, because this bearing is kind of a bugger to get out. It is what it is. It's gonna take us a little bit of time here to show you.
This tool you can typically rent from a auto parts store, Advance, whatever parts store you guys have locally that rents out tools. I just happened to buy mine from one that was closing down.
You don't want to strip the bugger, but I obviously maybe need to go a little bit tighter than most people are going to, because this tool's a little bit worn. So nonetheless, you guys get the idea. Alright, let's see if we can get her now. Alright, fellas. There it is. We're going to loosen this up. I'll show you the bearing. I'm going to get this off here first, actually. Just unscrew this. Oh yeah, it's tight in there. There it is. It's a roller bearing. Comes in the kit. You buy the bottom end kit. That's it. It's right in that hole. And this bearing, you just punch it out like those other ones I showed you. When we do the reassembly video, I will do all of them. I hope this was informative enough for you guys. I try to do my best to go as slow as possible and show you everything. My main thing for anybody doing it is just make sure you stay organized. I kind of just wanted to go through and show you guys how everything comes apart. But when I actually do like a motor build on a fresh motor, if I'm taking something apart that's already been built, everything is in a much more organized manner. So just make sure you have the space. Give yourself twice the space that you think you're going to want to have. You know, a good 4x8 table would be wonderful to work with, so that you can make sure you don't get crowded and you can keep everything in order and you don't have things on top of each other. But that's it for this video, and I hope you guys enjoyed it, and I hope you guys end up sticking around for the reassembly video to build a mod motor.